Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, Karen demands I pay her kid's dental bill. My friend, 39 female, June, brought her 8-year-old son Steven over to my house today. June and I were just chatting over a cup of tea when there was a scream from the kitchen, and we rushed to find that Steven had tried to eat a whole macadamia nut with the shell. For context, the shell on this nut looks very smooth and like chocolate. He obviously thought it was chocolate and tried to eat it from a closed Tupperware container on the kitchen island. I was going to crack them with a hammer later. My friend first admonished Steven for eating something obviously not meant for him and took him to emergency dental, where she later learned that he had cracked one of his molars and it was apparently quite bad. Apparently, as it's still his first set of teeth, they're just going to be pulling it out. But she wants me to pay for at least half of it as it was my macadamia and it was on the kitchen island and accessible. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why wasn't she supervising her kid? Why didn't she teach her kid not to eat random things he picks up in other people's houses? Also, he's 8. That molar is gonna fall out anyway, and his adult teeth will grow in to replace it. Not the jerk. How is this in any way, shape, or form your fault? Her kid tried to eat something that was in a closed container that wasn't meant for him, which she acknowledged, and she wasn't watching him. Some friend. Not the jerk. I hope you have good homeowner's insurance. She can sue the crap out of you if she wants to, and she would most likely win. Had a similar situation happen to us a few years ago. Our daughter's friend was over and somehow managed to fall down the stairs. Her glasses were broken and cost a fortune to replace. Her mom sued us and won the cost to replace the glasses and all legal fees. You'd be surprised how much a pair of glasses can cost. Am I the jerk for telling my brother he cannot stay with me over Christmas if he brings his prosthetic leg? My younger brother has a prosthetic leg. I think it's creepy and I have no idea where he got it. I'm reasonably certain that it's something I would rather not know. To be clear, my brother has 2 perfectly healthy legs still attached to his body. He just has this thing that he takes everywhere with him where he goes. I don't know why. I don't want to know. Before you ask, yeah, it is probably a mental thing. He wanted to stay with me rather than our parents while he's home for the holidays. I said he was welcome to stay so long as he doesn't bring that thing into my house. He said it wasn't a big deal and that he would just leave it in his luggage. I agreed on the condition that if I saw it outside of his luggage in my home, then I had the right to destroy it. He backtracked on staying with me and is at our parents' house now, where he is miserable. They still treat him like a kid instead of a guy who's almost 30. He called me again after supper and asked to please stay with me. I said he could so long as we, together, took this thing and put it into a storage unit until he leaves. I get the key. He won't do it. He says that I'm being a jerk for not letting him stay with me. I think he needs to get therapy or medication, or both, or a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a dog, a cat, hamster, something. Just not a prosthetic leg. Update. I didn't realize how much attention this was going to get. Enough that someone informed the woman my brother stole it from and she was able to figure out what happened. She called the cops and got him arrested. I guess he was sort of trying to do one thing where he could be the hero that tracked down her leg. Please don't ask me what was going through his head. That leg was expensive enough that he's facing real criminal charges. That's all. I'm 22 female. My boyfriend, who's 24, is a passport bro, and I had no idea. I've been with my boyfriend for 8 months. Things have been going really well between us up until a few days ago. Backstory. I'm from a Central European country and he's American. He said he settled in my country because of work opportunities. We met in a coffee house where I work as a barista. We clicked instantly and started going out a few weeks later. Everything was so good and we had so much fun. Fast forward to last week, he asked me to help him with some documentation. I was happy to, as I know my language is hard to understand and even translate sometimes. When I was searching online on his laptop, I stumbled upon some weird sites. They were all about passport bros. I didn't even know what that was at first, and basically had tips on how to settle in foreign countries, where to find a traditional bride, which country has the most beautiful women, etc. I was shocked and so confused. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I wanted to gain some clarity and checked his profile on one of these websites. He had full-on conversations about Eastern European countries, European women, how easy or hard it is to take them out on dates, or if it would be better to settle down in Asia instead, and so on. He decided to settle down in my country. I feel dehumanized. Also, like our whole relationship has been built on a lie because he told me he settled down here because of a job offer. After I found all this stuff out, I quickly took a few pictures as proof and then made up an excuse to come home. He tried to reach out a few times, but I told him I don't feel well, so I can't meet up right now. I can't even look at him. I feel so disgusted. Am I overreacting? How can I confront him about all of this? If you guys live separately, I'd just text him the pictures and inform him you don't plan on being his docile Euro wife, and let him know that one thing European women and American women have in common is none of them are going to settle for a weirdo. Oh goodness no. A quick, I'm sorry, but on reflection this isn't a good fit for me. I no longer want to be in contact with you, and then move on. You're not required to say why. You inform him that you're no longer interested because you are a decent human being, and also because you want him to know that you no longer want to be in contact with him. Last thing you want is him persistently reaching out to you thinking that maybe you're ill or something. No, break it off clean and then block. That way you also have a record in case of harassment. I would just exit the relationship. You're both young and you have time to find someone who will respect you. Every dude in this comment section telling you this is okay is a loser. How could you ever look at this dude the same again? Move on and find someone who didn't leave their own country because they can't stand the thought of being in a relationship with someone who is their equal, so they need to travel. Not only did he travel, he did extensive research on how to trick some foreign woman in her own country to be a traditional wife. His mistake was choosing the wrong country to go to in search of marriage. Central European countries are pretty much the same as America at this point. There are plenty of countries he could have gone to find the kind of partner he wanted. That's what I did 8 years ago when I met my wife, and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's everything that I was never able to find here in the States. Christian, feminine, respectful, honest, loyal, beautiful, doesn't drink or smoke, and neither do I, and she had never been married or had kids before. The few times we have had a disagreement, we're able to talk it through like adults. She never throws a fit and gets a bad attitude with me. Please tell me where I would have found someone like that here. The fact that everyone here is bashing men like me who just want to go where we are wanted and where we can be loved, it's proof that we would be foolish to stay here. I think all young men who are having trouble in the dating world should read this story along with these bitter comments. It might save some of them from horrible divorces and major financial loss. 1. Leave him. 2. Make sure you're safe. These people can be violent. I don't know what that looks like for you in your country, training to use some kind of weapon, an order of protection, moving, or telling family, but do it. OP, this guy picked you to harm you. Dealership ripped me off, 32 female, and my boyfriend, who's 37, doesn't care. How can I get him to care? I just had the most frustrating moment with my boyfriend of 3 years. So much so that I am reconsidering the relationship as a whole. He just doesn't seem to understand why what he said was wrong. My boyfriend, who's 37, is very passionate about cars and takes his cars to a very specific dealership. I, meanwhile, know almost nothing about cars besides basic maintenance. I used to get my oil changed regularly at a chain oil place, which my boyfriend found out about and told me something about why they were so bad. Something about how their lifts can damage the frame, and told me to stop going there and instead start doing my maintenance at the dealership where he takes his cars. Time for an oil change. I brought it in to his recommended dealership, and long story short, they tried to charge me $300 for the oil change and gave me a checklist of urgent things I needed done to my car. New spark plugs, all new tires, all new brake pads and rotors, all new filters, which totaled to over $2,000. I negotiated at the payment window for a better deal on the oil change because I was used to paying like $50, but they explained how my car needed a special type of filter and they all use synthetic oil, and that $300 was correct. I got home and told my boyfriend what they charged me, and I showed him the list of repairs they suggested I come back for. He said that was insane, and that his oil changes there were $40. We compared my bill to his, and they used the same amount of oil and the same number of hours of labor. It's just that his labor per hour was $50 and mine was $400. He also checked my tires, brakes, spark plugs, and said none of them needed replacing. I was so upset. I told him I suspected they were overcharging me based on the fact that I'm a woman. He replied, "I don't think that's the case. It's just a stupidity tax. They saw that you didn't know anything about cars and charged you accordingly." I told him I'm never taking my car there again and urged him to do the same. But he said no, that I could do whatever I wanted, but that he planned to continue taking all of his cars there. This led to an argument. I asked if he was okay supporting a business that took advantage of people. He said it didn't matter to him since he was car smart and knew enough not to be ripped off. I told him that I felt insulted that he indirectly called me stupid, and his reply was, "Well, do you know anything about cars? No, so you kind of are stupid in terms of cars. You can fix that by learning more about cars." I felt insulted that he called me stupid and upset that he took the side of the dealership, upset that he won't admit that this was a jerk move, and just overall, I hated his response. How do I navigate this? Take both of these bills in and ask them to clarify the discrepancy. Your boyfriend is a tool. He thinks he's special for knowing about cars. I know about cars. It's nothing special, and I would help my wife with anything car-related because that's my area of expertise. Your boyfriend is just a jerk who doesn't deserve you and isn't going out of his way to help you because he doesn't care about you. My wife always books our vacations because she's good at it. She doesn't tell me to do my own and doesn't call me stupid. I handle her car stuff, and I don't call her names for relying on me. Why even be in a relationship with someone that treats you worse than a stranger would? Am I the jerk for not getting off my horse and walking away when my mom tried to talk to me? I'm 21, male. My mom and I have a less than stellar relationship. My parents are divorced, and I lived with her until I was 16. A couple of months before I turned 16, she started dating a guy, and he didn't like me at all. I always had to be elsewhere when he came around. Shortly after my 16th birthday, my mom told me I was going to spend the weekend on my uncle's farm. So I went, and it was pretty fun. She didn't show up the day she was supposed to pick me up, so I called her, and she basically told me I was staying with my uncle permanently. When I told him, he was upset, and rightfully so. We both tried calling her, but she didn't answer. We did everything we could think of to get a hold of her, but we couldn't. The last time I saw her was a week later when she dropped off the rest of my clothes. My uncle is technically not my uncle. He's just a family friend, but he's the closest thing I've had as a parent for the last 5 years. My dad and I aren't close. Apparently, his house was too full for me when my mom left. Honestly, a big part of me is glad this happened. Shortly after I moved in, I got my own horse. She's a Clydesdale named Mary. She's 6, and she's my best friend. I've been working on this ranch with my uncle since I graduated, and I'm really liking it. I feel at peace. Anyway, my mom showed up to the ranch today. I had just got on Mary. It was funny, she didn't recognize me at first. She came up to me and asked if I'd get off, but I didn't. She told me this story about how she moved across the country with her ex because she thought she'd be happy with him. But then she told me that things didn't work out, so she found a place. Then she basically demanded I come home. I sarcastically said, "Sure," and I got Mary to start walking. That set her off. She started after me and started ranting about how I needed to live a normal life and that I had to find a girlfriend and not just ride horses all day. I stopped and said, "As far as you're concerned, this is my girlfriend," and that set her off even more. My uncle caught wind of what was happening and he came over and asked her to leave. She shouted, "I'm not leaving without my son." My uncle told her to leave again and threatened to call the cops if she didn't, and that got her to leave. The reason I'm making this post is because my dad just sent me this long text about how my mom misses me and how she only wants what's best for me. He then went on to say that I should give her a chance instead of threatening to call the cops. He ended the text by saying I was a jerk for not even getting off my horse to speak with her. Am I the jerk for walking away when my mom tried to talk to me? Edit. She's not really my girlfriend. I just said that to upset my mom. I have a human girlfriend. Not the jerk. She abandoned you and then showed up 5 years later and just assumed you would go with her. That's not how things work. She made a choice, and that choice had consequences. Additionally, unless you forgot to include it, she didn't even apologize. As for your dad, he wasn't involved when you needed him, so he doesn't get to be involved now. Am I wrong for who I chose to be my flower girl? My fiance, 35 male, and I, 30 female, have been dating since I was 20. We got engaged last year and have slowly been planning our wedding for next year. We have a guest list of 35, close friends and family only, and we each chose 2 people to be our groomsmen and bridesmaids. He's having his sister's son, who's 6, as the ring bearer, and I decided to have my sister's daughter, who's 4, as the flower girl. I have an amazing relationship with his family, and I have a very strained relationship with mine, although it is getting better with my parents. I had posted an announcement on our wedding Facebook page about the choices. It was just a photo of the kids looking through dresses and suits with their mom. 2 hours later, I got a call from my mother asking where the photo was taken and if it was where I was getting my dress. I told her it was them picking out their outfits for the wedding. She said, "Oh, that's cute," and then told me she had to go to an appointment, so we wrapped up the conversation and that was that. 30 minutes later, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize, so I ignored it. I don't pick up strange numbers. I saw they had left a voicemail, so I listened to it. It was my brother's wife. He's a horrible person, so I don't talk to him unless I have to. She was livid to say the least, yelling and crying about the fact that I didn't choose her son and daughter, and that they would never forgive me, and that I am no aunt to them. I chose to ignore this, as I don't have a relationship with them, and I don't owe them any sort of explanation. I then got a call from my brother, which I didn't answer either. He didn't leave a voicemail, and I didn't call back. 2 days later, there was a knock on my door, and guess who it was? It was my brother and his wife. She started demanding to know why I didn't pick their kids and why I gave some random kids their spot. I calmly responded it wasn't their spot, and they aren't random kids. She began crying hysterically and saying that her kids deserved it for me being such an awful person. I told them that her and my brother weren't even invited and they needed to get off my property. My brother was silent throughout this entire thing. I told my fiance what happened when he got home from work, showed him our Ring footage camera, and showed him the voicemail. I turned my phone off for the rest of the day and night and didn't turn it on until the morning. When I turned it on, I was bombarded with texts, calls, social media messages, and posts about how awful I was for punishing them and how I went crazy on my brother and sister-in-law. I posted the Ring camera footage and the voicemail and tagged everyone who had made a post or sent me a text. I got several apologies, but I frankly didn't care. Our guest list went from 35 to 25 in a matter of minutes, and I'm fine with it. My mother and father are mad about the situation and drama, but are for the moment staying out of it and telling us to figure our crap out. I still have family and friends, and all of our brother and sister-in-law's flying monkeys harassing me about not wanting their kids in my wedding and that I'm a monster for doing this. So Reddit, am I a jerk for punishing them and choosing my fiance's niece and nephew to be a prominent part of our wedding? Update. Restraining order is now in place. I got the call this afternoon. I posted a few days ago about the predicament I was in with my family. Well, in that 3 days since I posted, it has escalated far past what I ever thought. After I blocked everyone and uninvited people, I ended up deleting my wedding page and creating a private group chat with everyone who was still involved, which worked out perfectly. I told my mother I was going low contact with her and my father after everything that happened, and she was of course upset and wanted to talk it out. I told her when she could admit she was wrong and apologize, we could. I went into work a couple days later, yesterday, and got called into my boss's office immediately. He told me he was getting emails and calls about me from different people and that he was putting me on leave until I get this figured out. I had sent him an email about the entire situation when it happened, so he is completely understanding of it and doesn't want it to affect my work. When I got home, my brother was waiting for me there, alone. I sent a quick text to my fiance telling him, "My brother is here at the house," and then started recording as I got out of my car. I asked him what he wanted, and he told me he wanted to talk and asked if we could go inside. I told him we were fine talking in front of the house, and he rolled his eyes at me. He asked why I was excluding his kids, and I honestly just about lost it. I asked him if he was seriously asking me that question and if he truly thought I was that delusional. He started yelling at me that he's never done anything to me and that I'm a filthy no-good liar and that it's a wonder my fiance even wants me. I raised my voice and told him that he's a hypocrite and he mistreats people and that him and his wife were a match made in heck. He started walking towards me and I told him if he took one more step, I'd call the police. I was honestly terrified. As he was walking to get into his car, he said, "You know it'd be a shame if something happened to your car on the way to the wedding," and he left. I waited until I couldn't see him anymore to make sure he was actually leaving, and I called the cops. I gave them a copy of the video and all of the other evidence and asked if I could get a restraining order or a no-contact order for the both of them. I'm not sure if it will be possible, but here's hoping. I'm debating canceling the wedding and going to the courthouse instead. Still having our close family there, and my fiance's niece and nephew can still be a part of it. I was hoping to be able to update in February to tell you that the wedding went perfectly, but I don't know if that's going to happen now. Update 2. I'm happy to say that I'm officially married now. We moved into a new home and I'm pregnant. Restraining orders are still fully in place for all three crazy people and will stay that way for as long as possible. My husband and I decided to have a very small, very low-key ceremony at a cabin a few hours from our home. We told everyone that we had invited it was going to be a Christmas vacation and to keep it a secret. They all showed up, and in the morning we were married, in our PJs, coffee in hand, surrounded by the people we love. It could not have been more perfect and needed all that craziness. After we got back, my dad asked if he could talk to my husband and I alone. I was reluctant, but I agreed. We met up at a coffee place, and he told me that my mom had not told him the truth. She was telling him that I was seeking out my brother and sister-in-law and had promised their kids would have a place in my wedding and that I was the one causing all of this. He didn't truly believe it, but he's always been a pushover when it comes to my mom and didn't argue with it. He found all of the legal documents that had been served and left her. He's now staying at an Airbnb and in contact with a divorce lawyer. I forgive him, but made it clear he's on very thin ice. He understood and is actively trying to make it up to us, which is appreciated. We moved into our new forever home in a nice, secure neighborhood, and it has been a breath of fresh air. No bad memories, no surprises, just good vibes. So this will be my final update. Thank you for all of the advice and support. Happy New Year, and I wish you all nothing but happiness. Am I the jerk for not wanting my girlfriend to walk down the aisle and spend extra time with her ex for a wedding? I, 28 male, have been dating B, 24 female, for almost a year now. Her college friend, K, is getting married this summer, and I'll be her +1 to the wedding. K just asked B to be the maid of honor. The issue is that B's ex-boyfriend is going to be the best man, and she gave me a heads up that they'll be walking down the aisle together, and we'll have to meet up at some point before the wedding to prepare a joint reception, toast, and plan the bachelor and bachelorette trip. Request from the bride and groom. Obviously, I don't want to tell her who she can and can't hang out with, but I just don't feel comfortable with B spending so much time with her ex, especially because they only broke up a few months before we started dating, and they have a lot of history together. I asked her to see if she could make some changes to those plans, because I would have the respect to do it for her if the roles were reversed. It became a huge fight because she thinks I don't trust her, even though that's not true. She also said that she doesn't want to change any of those plans because Kay specifically asked her and her ex to be in charge of all the bridal party together. I even suggested, what if she just texted or Zoomed with her ex? I don't see why they had to be in person and hanging out for the planning. To this, she just said she can hang out with her ex. It's not that deep. I don't know if I even want to attend the wedding anymore as her +1 because it just feels like she's picking her ex over our relationship. Since then, Kay has texted me saying I can't tell B what to do, which I didn't. I simply made a request, and that I'm ruining the wedding planning. Am I the jerk? Soft, you're the jerk. You don't trust her. If she's going to cheat with the ex, she's going to do it regardless of how much distance you try to create, and your signs of not trusting her could be one of the things that pushes her back towards them. It's not fun to be with someone untrusting and nagging, yet those are the qualities you're choosing to exhibit as she spends unavoidable time with her ex. You could instead be the man making googly eyes at how amazing she looks in her dress, dropping her off at the prep sessions, hearing her excitement about plans, being a sounding board for ideas, etc. Her seeing an ex to carry out specific tasks is not disrespectful. We don't own our partners, and we shouldn't expect them to cut themselves off from parts of life to make us comfortable. You're the jerk. Either way, your relationship is doomed. You're going to break up over this fight, or she goes, cheats, and you break up. The only happy ending is you trust her, be supportive of her role, and be her +1. Plus, you get to have fun at a wedding, eat, drink, and dance all night. If you end up being right and something happens, be the better person and know that it ended because she was not trustworthy. No one likes a jealous, controlling partner, so don't be that guy. You're the jerk. I don't get how people manage to say, I don't want my partner spending time with person X in case anything romantic happens, and I trust my partner. Those two things are mutually exclusive. If you trust your partner, then you trust nothing will happen. I trust my partner, but not person X doesn't work either, because if you trust your partner, then you trust they would turn down any advances from person X. It's also very manipulative to make it about her respecting you. She could just as easily say, if you respect me, you won't act so possessive and controlling. If you don't trust her yet, then just say that to her. Don't try to manipulate her into thinking doing her duties as maid of honor are unreasonable. They could use Zoom. If you actually trusted her, they wouldn't have to. You're the jerk. She's not picking her ex over you. She's supporting her friend who's getting married. This wouldn't be an issue if you trusted her. You're making a big fuss out of this, and you're making these people's wedding about you. Grow up. Not the jerk. To be honest, it sounds like the couple is trying to get them back together. It's very suspicious. However, I don't think there's enough to go on to assume that she's going to do you dirty. That couple, on the other hand, knows exactly what they're doing. Unless she gives you a reason to not trust her, then trust her. But there's no way she isn't being set up by the couple. Not the jerk. Don't ask for relationship advice on a site where open relationships are considered to be a sign of a healthy, secure relationship. Be a man of value and leave this woman. Let her ex have her, and you go find someone who will respect you. My husband demanded I bake him a watermelon. Huge mistake. This is a family story that my grandmother, who's now passed on, told me for all of my life. Grandmama was an epic storyteller, and this tale is a family legend. My grandfather passed before I was born, and my grandmother would tell me such amazing tales of their deep love, hardships, and life together that I felt like I really almost knew him. This story takes place in the mid-50s in rural America. For context, that was a time and place when it was common and expected that most households, the men worked and the women stayed home, kept house and raised the kids, and the man was unequivocally the head of the family. These were the values of my grandparents, and they were happy with it. By all accounts, my grandfather had an adventurous palate and loved to try new foods. There wasn't an exceptionally large variety of exotic or new foods available in rural small-town groceries or markets in that era, so mostly people made dozens of variations of all the same foods that they were familiar with or could grow in their gardens. Well, the story goes that there had been some conversations at work that day where my grandfather had been bragging about what a good wife he had and how she would always cook him anything that he asked for to eat. I can almost hear the guys going, "Oh yeah? Is that so? Well, what about?" So my grandfather, Felix, comes home and he tells my grandmother, "Gladys, I want you to bake me a watermelon." Gladys, "What?" Felix, "I've decided I want to try baked watermelon, and I want you to cook it for me." Gladys, "Felix, I'm not baking a watermelon." Felix, "Well, of course you are, because I've asked you to." Gladys, "Absolutely not. That's absurd. You can't bake a watermelon. It will..." Felix, "Now see here. I'm your husband, and all this arguing and carrying on is uncalled for. I've already told the guys about how you'll make me anything I ask for, and that you'll make me this, even though they think that you won't. Now, I put this roof over our heads. I'm the man of this house, and if I want you to cook me a watermelon, then that's what you'll do." Having played the dreaded man card, my grandfather had secured the argument, and I could always picture my grandmother standing there seething until suddenly going stone cold. The only sign of trouble, that little twinkle of malice in her eye. Gladys, "Fine, Felix, so be it. I will bake you a watermelon, on one condition. You'll clean up after it." My grandfather, having foolishly cut her off earlier, and believing now that he had the upper hand, saw no problem with this and easily agreed. After all, how much trouble could it be to clean up after a watermelon? As the story goes, when that watermelon exploded inside the old stove, it blew the top completely off, and it was like a red liquid sugar bomb hit the entire kitchen. My grandfather, a man of honor and true to his word, and newly repentant for his attitude and not listening to his wife, cleaned everything. The walls, ceiling, floors, the entire kitchen. My grandmother got a new stove out of the deal, as well as the delicious victory of, "I tried to tell you." And Felix got to go back to work and tell the guys that his wife had, in fact, baked him a watermelon, that it was absolutely indescribable, and how he hoped that they had wives as good as his and would soon get to try it for themselves at home. I got $500 worth of prime rib for almost free thanks to scanner law. I was visiting my local grocery store on Sunday in Michigan with the intention of buying a couple of pounds of chicken wings and 2 steaks for my wife and I. As the meat department clerk was weighing and preparing my wings, I looked at the prime rib and the very large, think 12 to 13 pounds apiece, prime rib sections were listed with the dollar amount and then each. I thought this was peculiar because that just seemed off to me. It should have said dollar amount per pound. I snapped a photo of the price tag and then I took a flyer and said, "Hey, I have a big party coming up. I need all of your prime rib." He looked at me like I was crazy and began the process of packaging up 6 of the whole prime ribs. I cook for a veterans group on Saturdays, and this would not only go far, but it would save a ton of money on their budget. I went up to the register and the meat rang up for over $140 per package. I scanned each of them, I paid the price, and I walked right over to customer service. The customer service attendant got very wide-eyed and called over a manager. I walked with the manager over to the meat area where the price was still displayed as $17.99 each, and I let him know that due to the scanner law, I just want the difference, with the $5 added to each. The manager was livid. They completed the refund of the difference, and he said to me, "This could very well lead to someone losing their job." At that point, I said, "You can't be serious. I'll return the meat. Nobody needs to lose their job." The manager responded with, "Maybe you shouldn't have taken advantage of the fact that somebody made a mistake because it's already too late." So, am I the jerk here for taking advantage of the incorrect price? If this was a mom and pop local butcher shop, you're the jerk. If this was a giant chain, not the jerk. As far as the firing goes, that's not on you. You don't know the employee's work history leading up to this. More likely than not, the manager was just trying to make you feel bad. Edit. Not the jerk. OP confirmed it's a huge chain. OP. It's the biggest grocery corporation in the US. Forget the Waltons. Enjoy the prime rib dinner with the vets. Edit. Since many of you are pointing out Walmart isn't the leading grocer, let me be clear. Forget Kroger, forget Fred Meyer, forget Amazon, forget Procter & Gamble. I'm all for forget the Waltons, but what a lot of people don't realize is that when mistakes like this are made, it doesn't affect the Waltons, it affects the employees. This may not only cost someone their job, but it most definitely cost everyone in that store their bonus for the quarter. People are crazy to think the higher-ups would lose from their own pockets before taking it out on those who need it more. Not the jerk. Not your fault they made a mistake. That manager, however, is a jerk if he's going to fire someone over $500 or blame you for their mistake. Not the jerk. It's a major grocery chain. I imagine the manager was just trying to make you feel bad. Grocery stores throw away tons of food every day and destroy it so it can't even be used to serve the homeless, etc. Forget them. I'm never mad at people for stealing food. Edit. Thank you for doubling my comment karma on this one post, y'all. Lol at all the "you're the jerks." Not the jerk by a huge mile. The manager needs to do their job and not guilt trip you for taking advantage of the law. I'm so torn here. If it's scanned at the listed price, I'd say you were just taking advantage of an error, which I honestly can't say I've never done. Where I start thinking you might be the jerk is that you went ahead and made the store enforce the wrong price, even though everyone involved knew it was an error and you bought all of the prime rib. This goes beyond taking advantage and gets into jerk territory. Someone likely will lose their job over this. When I was a cashier at a grocery store in high school, I was fired for a customer writing a check. Yeah, this was a long time ago, for $100 less than their order, which meant my till was $100 short. I should have double-checked, but I didn't. Same thing with the employee who put the wrong price up. Should one mistake cost you a job? Probably not, but that's the way this usually shakes out. I honestly am not sure which way to go with this one, but I'm forced to make a judgment. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. You knew it was a pricing mistake when you took the picture. It's one thing to do it with a single prime rib, but to wipe out their entire inventory is gluttonous. What you do with the prime rib after you've bought it has nothing to do with the impact that it has on the poor clerk working there, nor the other customers that may have also wanted the product. Adding the part about cooking for veterans comes off as emotionally manipulative to me. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. You knew the price was labeled wrong. You should have simply called attention to the fact. Instead, you intentionally ripped off the store for your own benefit. Sounds like you're legally in the clear, but that doesn't make it right. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for what he did or not? Please let us know. All these commenters on Reddit show you why stores have to be so strict about stuff. If it were up to these guys, they'd just steal everything they could get their hands on. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.